Okay, here we have a nice slide that breaks down the materials by either fixed asset, equipment, or expendables. The product ID usually that is linked to them, basically how they start with, will usually 2-1 for fixed assets, 1-5 for equipment, but be careful because we also have the 1-5 for expendables. Okay, and we have other digits that represent specific expendables here. The flag for each one of them, if they're quality, batch managed, or serialized. Okay, and this is one to keep in mind. So I think, again, as I said at the beginning, this is a good presentation to keep with you and review as you're deployed in the mission, as you study for this training and throughout this training. Okay, a bit more of a breakdown of the summary of the attributes that we saw before. So if we're talking about fixed assets versus if we're talking about equipment or expendables, okay, the type of material, the material number, and the flaggings for each one of them, depending on the materials that we're dealing with. All right, and here we go, the grouping here again. Our materials in our master data are broken down into 3: equipment, fixed assets, and expendables. Okay, so remember, fixed assets, equipment, and expendables are all materials. Okay, fixed assets are equipment, but not all equipment are fixed assets. All right, just a few things to keep in mind. And a bit more of the breakdown. Now, we have the material master data information here. And within this material master, we have the equipment master information, which are the materials that must be tracked, installed, maintained, operated, and so on. So we're creating this equipment master record as we receive the materials into our inventory, and we're assigning serial numbers to them. And then we also have the asset master record, and this is for the fixed assets, okay, that are also UN materials but have the value above the IPSAS threshold, okay, and they're tracked using the asset master record. So although we have a material master data record in the system, this is also broken down into the equipment master record and the asset master record, okay, to be able to keep track of these materials and how they're dealt with in the system. Okay, let's move on to our next slide here. Again, just more of a breakdown of how these materials are grouped, okay, in a sense, our material master, our equipment master, and our asset master record, and why these are created. For example, the equipment master record created for a specific physical item, and the same thing for the asset master record. But for the equipment master record, additional details for aspects of managing the equipment. If, for example, material is both equipment and fixed asset, the records are linked. Okay, so if we're talking about a fixed asset that is an equipment, which is the case, right, we always have these 2 master records linked to each other. Now, I don't want to get too much into this because it could be quite complex. I just want you to understand the linkage of this in the system, okay, when we're talking about master data. Let's move on to our next slide and see if it's more of the same. I'll just move on, and I just wanted to have these slides here for you so you can...
If I may, Brian?
Yeah, Daniel.
Yeah, now that you're tackling the material master and how it's clear in the presentation that you have an asset master and equipment master, when we go through the BI reports, you'll see that in BI reporting, the way that the system understands each of the report, it will be with that breakdown. So we do have reports only devoted for assets, for what the system calls property and equipment, P&E. And then we have another set of reports only devoted to equipment not being fixed assets, because the system treats both records in a different way. So it's important to do an analysis as well separately. So the affectation between the equipment master and the asset master, it's there because both are pieces of equipment, but the way that we analyze the information